As we study our chatbot agent in detail, this video clip will tell you what are the various machine learning modes in which your agent can operate and how are they different, and why is it important that you configure them right. This is the screen that you encounter when you first create your agent. Now we are ready to explore our agent settings. This we do by clicking on the gear icon to the top left of our UI. What you'll first see is all the configuration that you first set up when you created your agent. Under the General Settings tab, you can see the description and the current avatar for your agent. By default, it is the Dialogflow logo. We won't be really using the avatar here because it's only displayed in the web demo for your agent. Web demo is a facility that Dialogflow provides in order to test out your app. We're not going to use that in this course, so I'll just move on from here. Notice that you can also edit the name of the agent and the default time zone, but the default language is not editable. It is grayed out, as you can see on screen. When we set up our agent, we had said that we should create a new Google project to associate with our agent. And the ID of that project is what you see on screen. It's set up at random. It uses trip planner, the name of our agent, that's the prefix, and a numeric suffix. Now, when you configure and set up your chatbot, you can choose to use Google Platform resources in order to say host the server code on a virtual machine on the GCP and so on. In that case, your Google project ID becomes more relevant because you want to instantiate other resources such as VMs, cloud functions, etc. within the same project. If you're planning to use external resources, then you don't need to worry about this project ID. And here are two access tokens, which in the ideal state you shouldn't really be sharing with anyone. I've already gone ahead and deleted this agent, so it's okay for me to display it on screen here. This is the client access token and the developer access token. The client access token is used to programmatically access various parts of your agent, such as the query the user sent, the current context, the user entities that exist, and so on. The developer access token is used to actually modify your agent. This you can do so programmatically. Now, we're not actually going to query or modify our agent programmatically here. We don't require these tokens for this particular course, but you should know they exist and know why they exist. As users interact with your chatbot, they pass in a whole bunch of text fragments, sentences, phrases, and so on. Now, if it's possible that this contains personally identifiable information of the user, you do not want these user expressions to be logged somewhere permanently on your system. In that case, you will disable interaction logs. You will check this checkbox. And if you're sure that you're not interested in this agent anymore, you have the option to delete it using this delete this agent button. That completes our discussion of the general tab. You can go to the languages tab and notice that the default language cannot be changed. You can choose to have additional languages that your chatbot understands. So, in addition to English, your chatbot may understand French, German, etc., depending on what you configure here. You can simply use select additional language and configure the languages. As a best practice, you should configure the intents and other parameters for your bot before you configure additional languages, because a copy of the intents, entities, and other parameters will be made for chatbots in every one of these additional languages. You do need to specify user expressions separately for each additional language. Remember that user expressions are the phrases that a user uses while conversing with your bot. These will obviously be different in different languages. The next setting is a very interesting setting and is also the core technology which powers your chatbot. As you know, your chatbot uses natural language processing in order to understand what the user says, extract this information, map it to intents, and finally call the server code for fulfillment. All of this is possible via the ML algorithms that run under the hood. You are actually completely abstracted away from these ML algorithms, but you can tweak it a little bit using this ML settings tab. The machine learning model that Google builds is unique to your agent. It is based on the user expressions that you specify, that is, how users interact with the bot, and also Google's language models which it has learned by looking at millions of snippets of conversation. With Dialogflow, you can choose your machine learning model to operate in one of two modes, the hybrid mode or the ML only mode. The hybrid mode functions as a rule based chatbot plus an ML based chatbot. Under the hood, Google will make its choice. You'll typically choose the hybrid model when you don't have a whole number of user expressions to provide as examples to your bot. This happens to be the case in the chatbot that we'll build from scratch, which is why we choose the hybrid model, rule based as well as machine learning based. You'll use the ML only mode when you have a large number of conversation snippets to feed into your bot. There are many examples of how users can interact. This will typically be the case when your bot has been in production for a long time and has become more intelligent, then you can switch over to the ML only mode. Now, when your machine learning model for the agent listens to what the user has to say or parses what the user has to say within the chat window, it'll then generate a confidence score as to how sure the model is that this is what the user intends or this is the goal that the user wants to accomplish. This is reflected in terms of a confidence score. This ML classification threshold parameter that you see on screen will determine the threshold for the confidence score beyond which a match has been accomplished. If you want the user to be very precise in what he or she is asking the bot, that is, you want the model to have high confidence in what the user says before mapping it to an intent, then you'll increase the threshold value of this confidence score. One thing to note here is that the ability to tweak how your machine learning model matches user expressions, that is, the match mode, may not be available in all languages for Dialogflow. If your primary language is other than English and maybe a few other languages which allow this option, you may not be able to tweak your ML settings. We'd spoken earlier of the ability to train an agent from the data used in another agent. And this you can do by exporting the data from the current agent. There are various ways in which you could export the data as a zip file. You could also restore data from another agent into this agent when it has previously been exported as a zip file, or you could use the settings from another agent as an addition to the settings that you configure for your current agent. You won't simply zap the current agent settings. And finally, under the Share tab, you can have more than one developer work on the agent by sharing it with other people on your team. We're done with exploring our agent. If you've made any changes to your settings, make sure you click on Save before you move ahead. You now know that under ML settings for your agent, you have the ability to tweak how your machine learning model matches the text fragments or the sentences that the user says. This you do using the match mode. There are two modes in which your machine learning model can operate. That is the hybrid mode, where it uses a rule based algorithm and ML in some kind of combination in order to match user expressions. This is typically used when we just have a few examples of or text fragments of what the user says to talk with your agent. The other mode is the ML only mode. This is typically used when we have a large number of user expressions to train our machine learning model. Based on what you have, you'll choose one of these two match modes.